What's up, everyone? I'm CEO Connolly, and today I just want to have kind of a little talk with the authors out there. So, here's the thing. When I first started writing, the first thing I did was buy a bunch of writer's reference books, because this was back before the internet. Anyway. So you get all these writer's reference books, and some of them say, oh, your word count in your book, if it's this genre, needs to be this much, or if it's this genre, needs to be this much, this genre, and you see all these numbers. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, so I have to make sure that my story has these word counts so that I can get it published, right? Here's the problem. When you start focusing on your word count, you immediately start putting in filler words. And I have actually been caught doing that a ton of times. In order to, when all I needed to put was that, as well as, when I could literally just put and. So you end up putting in filler words to fill the word count. And you really don't need all that crap. I still do that. I know I do. Because my beta readers are going, why do you do this? And it's like, I don't know. And it's because I got so conditioned to follow this formula from the 80s and 90s. Because back then, if I look at a lot of the copyright pages of these writer's reference books, that's exactly when they were published. The 80s and 90s. So I look at these books and I realize that it constantly talks about word count. You need to have this word count when you publish this book, or, for a 50,000 word book, it's only considered as a novella and not an actual novel. No, I'm sorry, but this is what I consider as a novella. Okay. These books back here that I have written, no. I don't. And yes, one of them is only 52,000 words. Do I care? No. The problem is when I was forcing myself to make sure that I was writing at least 65,000 words to put in my book, because then it would end up with a lot of filler content. So if you read my Affair series, yes, there is a lot of phrases that are filler content. Unnecessary, not needed, but you know what? It made the story work. So I made sure that it made the story work. But my only thing is, at this point, is to focus on the story. And I talked to another author. He also does a lot of the conventions and stuff like that. So he does vendors, or he's a vendor at a lot of these conventions. So I talked to him because a lot of his books are really small. No big deal, right? And he does splatterpunk. And a lot of splatterpunk is short, and that's fine. As a matter of fact, I actually have a book over here on my bookshelf. Okay, this was written by another one of my fellow authors that does vendor at the conventions, and she writes a lot of stuff. And it's like, who cares? Who cares how many words your book, that doesn't go there. Sorry, I put it in the wrong spot. It's going to bug me. But who cares how many words your book has? I mean, these publishers are making it so much harder for authors to actually write and get their story because they're so focused on their word count. And when I had talked to this other guy, I was like, what is your word count goal normally whenever you finish a book? And he goes, word counts. He goes, I don't worry about word counts. He said, I just make sure that my story's great. And I was like, okay, I do the same thing, but I feel like the word count is important. And I'm always constantly looking to make sure that I hit specific word counts. And so like when I finish the shit draft of any of my books and I realize that they are only 12,000 words in my shit draft, I know that when I go to edit it again, it'll be at 25, 28, 32,000 words. And then when my beta readers bring me their notes, those edits will make it go up to 45, 55, maybe 65 if I try. But the thing is, though, is that a lot of the times me trying to get to that 65,000 word count, literally, it adds filler content, and I'm constantly focusing on my word count. And it's so frustrating because I feel like I'm not doing enough, because I have been so conditioned that these word counts are important, when in actuality, the word counts are not what's important. It's the story itself. So my advice is focus on your story, not the word count, because the word count will make you crazy. And I have noticed that a lot of authors, especially on TikTok, they're always talking about, oh, I wrote this many words today. Oh, I wrote this many words today. I stopped doing that. I stopped paying attention to how many words I write every day. And what I do still calculate my words. I do that. But that's just more of, did I actually do anything good today? Was I productive today? And so that's one thing. Like in my planner here, okay, which I don't know if, I think I've showed this once before. In my planner here, I actually have, I'm going to try to do this as best as I can. Okay, so I actually have word counts. Okay, so I know, that's how many words I wrote, and it's like, it varies every single day. But then you get a lot of people that are sitting there thinking, it's like, oh my God, did I write enough? Like literally Friday says 1,241. I wrote 1,241 words in one day. But the day before that was only 718. And the day after that was only 512. Heck, I've got Tuesday says it was 227. It doesn't matter. I'm still getting through the story. And when I first started editing, because that's my beta edits for Shunning of Disciples. When I first started, it was at 37,843. That's how many words I had on the manuscript when I sent it to my beta readers. So my beta readers only read 37,843 words. Now, I will tell you that word count also includes the 2 title pages and my copyright page, and my also written by the author page, and the dedication, because in my cult series I don't have dedications. But those pages, those are the word count that still exists in this too. It's not as many words as you think it is, but it still shows up in my word count. So you have to think about it that way too. I don't care that I ended it with 42,001 words. Okay, so I ended that writing week with 42,001 word. Okay, that's great. That's where it's at right now. Okay, and when I continue going on, it may end up getting, I know it's going to go further because that's only up to chapter 12. So at up to chapter 12, I have 42,000 words. Great. So what is the rest of the book going to look like when I start adding more? Or, because generally what it is that whenever I edit, I know what's happening. I know exactly what's going on. So it goes to my beta readers to tell me, is there anything I did not make clear? Is there any sentence that doesn't make sense? Because mostly what happens is that when I'm editing, it'll go through, and sometimes my husband will come home in the middle of me writing and I'll just put a period and stop. Sometimes it's mid-sentence because I got distracted and couldn't remember that I was still in the middle of doing something. So my main point is focus on your story, focus on what you're trying to say in that story. Make sure there aren't any plot holes. It doesn't seem like, I was watching a movie and you keep sitting there thinking to yourself, it's like, dude, you're close to him. Pull the mask off or whatever, right? But people are so worried about leaving the mystery to the movie. It's like, dude, you could legit rip this guy's face mask off before he murders you and know exactly who just killed you. rather than having to deal with later as a ghost going to haunt the guy. I don't know, whatever. But I'm just saying, it's like, just because the guy's got his, hand around your neck and he's holding you up, you've got your hands free. Just reach over and rip his mask off. It's so irritating that it seems so simple, but because they want to leave the mystery of it in the movie, they don't do that. But that just seems stupid. So to me, that seems like a plot hole. I know that's not the proper definition for that, but I'm just saying, it's literally one of those things where it's like, this is not realistic. Anybody who was actually being choked by a masked crusader or, murderer, they're probably most likely to rip the mask off. And that's so that in case they survive. What if they survive? They have a description. Otherwise, if they do survive and the cops go, did you see your attacker? No, I only saw his eyes through the mask. Really? Now you just sound like an idiot. But, I have also learned, your story has to be believable. Has to at least have some reality to it. Fantasy is totally different. Fantasy does not have to have any reality to it. But when you write things like I do, it needs to be believable. And I actually have, sedatives and drugs and different types of things like friendly misfortunes. Friendly misfortunes, I mentioned succinylcholine, okay, which is literally a drug that is used to, I think the word is intubate a patient when they have to put the breathing tube down into their chest. They have to relax all of the muscles in the body. Well, it also causes the muscles that are used to breathe to also relax, which means you cannot breathe on this drug and you will slowly suffocate. So that's why they put the breathing tube in there, but it helps with all of the breathing muscles to relax so they can get that breathing tube in easier. So I literally looked it up, succinylcholine. I know exactly what the drug is called. In Shunning of Disciples, I used the drug methahexadol, I believe is how you pronounce that. It's just a barbiturate sedative because there's a big dude that they need to sedate because he is, running amok in the city of disciples. So I do my research on these things, and later when it's referenced, maybe I just use the one word, succinylcholine, or I will use the two words, the barbiturate sedative. It really depends. So that's probably the best way to use filler content, is when you're explaining those things, like the drugs and what they do and, how you can actually explain it and stuff like that. But you don't want your word count to, because I know that a lot of writers also complain that they are considered as over writers, so they write too much information and they have to delete some. I could never do that. I could never go through and delete some of the information that I put in there, mostly because of the fact that I'm sitting there going, this stuff is important to the story. It's how I feel. It's important to the story. Now you just need to explain it a little bit better. Maybe you need to change the wording. Change the wording. Don't just get rid of the entire scene. Just change the wording so it flows a little bit better with the story. Like, that would be completely horrifying to me, to get rid of an entire scene just because, this isn't necessary. You don't need all of this. But you kind of do. Like, you put it in there for a reason. Like, I would literally be horrified if somebody was like, oh, get rid of all of this. I'm sorry, what? I'll change the wording, make it more exciting, but I am not getting rid of the scene. There's a reason I put it there. Like, okay, but here's the deal. I'm an underwriter. My shit draft is always just getting the idea out of my head and onto the computer. Now, when I used to do everything handwritten, I used to handwrite all of my first drafts. So all of my shit drafts were handwritten. There was no dialogue. The action was summarized. There wasn't a whole lot actually going on. It was basically notes. And then I went from that, put it in the computer, printed it out, went back over it, then took those notes, put it in the computer to make the story a little bit better, printed that out. Then I went back over it, added dialogue, or found little areas where stuff was just being explained, and basically said, this should be dialogue, not just, explaining that they're talking about something. There should be dialogue there. So then I do that, and then I put it in. This gave me too many steps. And this is why it would take me 2, 3, 4 years to actually get a book published, because of the fact that I kept going, I put it in the computer, I'd print it out, I'd go over it. Put it in the computer, I'd print it out, I'd go over it. It's too many steps. And it's only because of the fact that I was always afraid that the story wasn't good. Then I got beta readers. So then I was like, you know what? I can write it by hand the first time. I can make sure that instead of doing 4 rounds of edits, I can do 2 rounds of edits and then send it to my beta readers and let them tell me what you need more information on. Once they tell me, like, I have literally changed more of this story doing the beta edits and stuff on there from their notes, that I've realized that the story was great to begin with, but there's so much where it's like there is inconsistencies, but I'm finding a lot of those inconsistencies, and I'm going, nobody caught the fact that she was in one room. Like, she was in room 10 is where they put her, but now all of a sudden she's in room 5. What? I caught it. Nobody else did. None of my beta readers caught that. Excuse me. So anyway, it was so weird, but it's because it's mentioned in like chapter 7, I believe, is where it's mentioned that she's placed in isolation room 10. But then this whole big just, and it's like nobody's paying attention when in chapter 9, it's mentioned that, I entered room 5 to go talk to her. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back. So I go to scroll back and I look at it and I go, she is in room 10. I thought so. And it's because I'm doing so many edits, boom, 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 because I want to get this book published in the next week and a half. Actually, wait, this is going to be posted on a Thursday. So next week. I want to get this book published by next week. I just started editing it last week. So there you go. Beta edits are so much easier for me as well, because it seems like it goes by just a little bit quicker, because what I do is I actually highlight certain sections. I have my computer read it to me, and then if it sounds weird, I'll change it. Sometimes I actually have to read it out loud myself, because then I'm going, I'm sorry, he said what? Because there are times where it sounds like there's no period, because he just goes from one sentence to the next without the period in there. And I say he, like I'm talking about my computer has a gender, but the voice is a guy. So it's like he'll read it and it sounds like there's missing a period. I have seen where, yes, I am missing a period. I have seen that. There are times where I have seen I am missing quotation marks at the end of dialogue, but I've also read a traditionally published book that is missing quotation marks at the end of the dialogue. But I do still have my editor that this will go to. So she will check for periods and quotation marks and things like that. So I do still have another round that is going to come back to me, but I am hoping to get this published by next week. Yeah, that's just my plan. So anywho, oh, excuse me, good grief. But yeah, I'm not focusing really on my word count. I mean, yeah, I'm writing it down, but that's just to see if I'm being productive in any way and actually doing anything. And that's basically because I'm not going to say, oh, I wrote chapters, 11 and 12, or I, edited chapters 11 and 12. Okay, fine. So I edited chapters 11 and 12, but how much editing did I actually do? Did I make any progress to the story? That's the only reason why I chart my word counts. And that's for me. I'm not charting it to go, oh my God, I need to hit 65,000 words. I need to hit 80,000 words. I got to do this. Oh my God. Or Stephen King Under the Dome sized books. Because hell no, I still have not made it through that book. I'm just saying. And, I did that with my Affair series. So my Affair series, I tried to make sure that each one of them had at least 65,000 words. But if you see Fruitful Affair, I legit said this is the last book in this series. And I have seen other people write books and it's not 65,000 words. So there you go. As a matter of fact, it's 58,000 words. So, but, oh, and I will say too that I know that City of Disciples looks like the biggest book I have, but it actually has less words in it than my first Forbidden Affair. Yep. It has less words in it because it's only at 52, maybe. You know what? I can actually find it because I published it earlier this year. So let's see. City of Disciples. Oh, look at my word count. See, this is also what I'm doing. Oh, end word count, 51. My ending word count of City and Disciples is 51,708. There you go. And like I said, it's literally for me because if you think about it, also that word count is the copyright page, the 2 title pages, the also written by page, oh, about the author page. So there you go. Don't worry about your word counts. Focus on your story. It makes it so much easier and a lot more fun, and it goes by so much faster when you're focusing on the story and not on making sure that the word count is correct. Because if you're making sure that your word count is correct, what ends up happening is you end up going to, you know, filler words, as well as in order to. He turned and walked back toward the building and then turned back and looked at her. What? I literally edited that earlier today. That's the only reason why. Yeah, I literally edited that earlier today. And not only that, but I have made a 15-word sentence 8 because of the fact that that's all I needed. See, because of the fact I use filler words in my speaking, so it doesn't actually affect me in any way. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Yeah. Make sure you're subscribed if you want some more. Because next week I'm going to be talking about my writing process and how I managed to write Citizen's Assassin in 20 days. So I'm going to talk about that next week. So subscribe if you want to see that video, and make sure you turn on notifications so you know when I post. I also try to keep you updated in my community tab. Sort of, but I'm really bad about social media. Like, I don't post on Facebook or Instagram or any of that stuff. So, I mean, I do whenever, and I don't like Twitter. But anyway, okay, that's it. Okay, bye.